everyone. Welcome to an exciting ARG Presents. I'm Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who knows what it's like to get down in the dirt. Give it up for the BRENT.
Hey, how's it going, man?
What's going on? You emerged from the murk there.
Yeah, I found my way out of the cave system. It's scary back there.
You know, we all know about Spelunky, but we just learned about Flunky. There he is.
So, I think we've known about Flunky for quite a while.
That's about the point. So, if you joined us last week, God bless you. One of the few that showed up.
I want to thank both of you for showing up.
Thank you so much for showing up last week. And you were one of the few that realized that this week, we spun the wheel, we made a deal, and this week we're going to be playing games that are decidedly, bam, underground. It's Underground Games Week, Brent. Now, we don't mean the underground, like these guys are out spray painting stuff. We're talking about underground.
Deals.
We're talking about under the earth, Brent.
That's right.
Now, this is an interesting topic. Where'd we come up with this one? Is this one of yours?
Man, after 120 episodes, who knows?
I don't know where these things come from. So if you suggested this, thank you. And if we come up with it, we're great. Brent? What's your opinion? What's your thoughts on the underground games? Is this your cup of tea?
You know, well, here's something you have to realize. Underground games have a unique perspective in why they were programmed to be underground games. You get to take advantage of not having to worry about a background, right? Because you can just, it's black, it's dark. That all makes sense. Even in modern games, when you have that underground theme, you get to turn all the brightness and stuff all way down. And that means you don't have to put as much detail into your artwork, stuff like that. It's an excuse from a programming perspective to take a lot of shortcuts that you can't do with some other games. So I think that's one reason why underground games, especially in the retro area, were as prevalent as they were. Now, do I have a personal preference on the underground theme versus a city theme or a mountain theme? Not really. I think a lot of it comes down to color palette, and I think some games do it better than others. For example, I think when people think if you had to name a game right now, underground theme, I think most people would come up with Dig Dug.
That's exactly the first one that I think of, Dig Dug, yes. And
Dig Dug had all these earthly colors, the nice hues all the way down, and it still had that we're grounded in reality top part above the ground. I think that if you're going to play an underground game, to design, I think that's the way you do it, because it still offered a very colorful environment. It didn't just rely on the drab browns or grays, and that so many others fall into that pitfall of doing.
I agree with you on a lot of what you said, and I think another thing is just there's a lot of cool elements of the thought of going under the ground into the earth. It's a neat story element that for these sorts of games. Listen, I don't know about you, but I've been in many a cave. We're lucky here. We're in West by God, Virginia, USA, for in case that you didn't know or couldn't tell by the accents. And we are lucky in the fact that we've got tons and tons of cave systems around, man. Now, not necessarily right around our house.
Otherwise.
What's that?
Man-made and otherwise.
Well, yeah, but not within 10 miles of our house, but within 50 miles, there are caves, systems. And then I work in Kentucky. Kentucky's home to one of the largest cave systems on Earth, with the Mammoth Caves. I've been in all of these caves. Believe it or not, I have been through many caves, probably dozen caves in my life, including every cave's got this thing. They love to throw this in your face. It's called Fat Man's Lament. They've all got one where you've got to squeeze your body into this crevasse. Yeah. And I've squeezed my big old hiney through a bunch of these. I wondered if I was going to get my hiney back out of these things. So in a proper cave, though, it's ripe for adventure, man. There's a place I went called Lost Caverns where the dude lived in the cave for a while, and it's sort of documented. Every cave system I've ever been to has a bit where they turn off the lights in the cave and it's pitch black. They all do that bit. There's always a bit where they have a big pile of rocks and they've given all the rocks hilarious names. That's something they all do. But one, so you get to see that, and then most of the caves have an underground stream with blind fish. That's the third thing. I've seen that in a bunch of caves. But the one thing they all have in common is what you really want to do when you get down in there is put your hat on with the light, get a pickaxe like a rope, and just go through and swing and go crazy, which you can't do. But in a video game world,
they frown upon that.
You can. I did it one time. I got kicked out of the cave. Also, I realized I couldn't use a rope or climb a rope. Not good. But it does feed your mind as to what could be lived down here. Hey, we played Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. You were exploring caves. So caves are sort of a staple of adventure gaming. And so
absolutely.
When you think of underground games, are there any games that come to mind aside from Dig Dug that are like your favorites?
Well, of course, we talked about Dig Dug. Dig Dug is almost certainly my favorite. In a more modern setting, there's a game called Spelunky, where it's a roguelike platformer where your whole goal is just to go through these cave systems and get money. It just popped up on our video if you're watching at home. Hero. I played the heck out of Hero on the 2600 back in the day.
Yeah.
Thought it was a great game concept. You're out there and you're just trying to rescue miners, which perfect setting for it. You've got to have that underground feel and atmosphere.
Yeah, this would have been the game I would have picked if I hadn't already played it. Love this game, and it never gets old, and it's great on every system. They did a great job with Hero.
Yeah, and like you had mentioned before, exploration, a big part of underground games. When they're really doing them right, you can do a lot of fear and horror elements that I think really you don't have a whole lot of games that explore that. I think to the level that it could be explored. I guess like Hunt the Wampus. Would you say that is a
Wampus? Of all the games to come up with, Hunt the Wampus.
You're in a cave.
There's fear. What? There's fear. That's for sure. If the Wampus get you, you're done. When I think of my favorite underground games, and of course I made the video we're watching, so if you're watching this, you're gonna see a bunch of the ones that I picked. But Miner 2049er, Hero, Night Stalker, those are all great. Bagman's another one I think of. I like games where you go into mines, like Manic Miner. You gotta have him in there. I like that sort of thing. So of course. We come from a family of miners, so if we don't like mining games, we would be excommunicated, Brewster. Yeah. So it's definitely, we can both agree it's a source of it's a source of gaming that is probably going to go on for all times. And so and we didn't limit ourselves here. We could have picked any mining game or underground game since the beginning of time on any system. And I'm going to start the show this week, Brentster, because I wanted to pick something. Here's my personal. I had personal goals this week, and I wanted to pick something I never played on a system that I don't play that much, that I'm just trying to get used to, and play something that would be fun and look interesting. And so what I went with was a game on the C64 called O'Reilly's Mine. Now. Yes. I may have heard of this long ago, but I have a vague recollection of it, frankly. But I didn't know what it was, and I gotta say I looked through a lot of games. I mean, I really did. I started on the Amstrad, went through that, some Spectrum stuff, and some Atari stuff. And I wanted to try something on the C64 because I've got my C64 rigged up here, and I thought it would be fun to try to capture some footage from it and play some games. And so I went with O'Reilly's Mine. This was published and developed by Datasoft, Brent, which we've covered a ton of Datasoft stuff. They've done a zillion games back in the day. They did Canyon Climber, Moon Shuttle. They did Dallas Quest. Of course, you love that one. They did Bruce Lee. Then they did a lot of ports. Dig Dug, Lost Tomb, Zorro, Pole Position, Goonies, Mr. Dude. They did tons of this stuff. All across the multitude of different machines, man. So they were well seasoned. The original design for this particular game was by a fellow named Mark Riley. So it's O'Reilly's Mine. You get it? He was responsible for, among the games he did were Monster Mash, Bishop Square, and shooting arcade. So I'm not particularly familiar with any of those. The C64 version of this was programmed by a fellow named Al Rubin. He actually did some work on the Super Nintendo. He did Bill Walsh Football. Remember that? Remember Bill Walsh? When he was a big deal with the... he was the coach for the San Francisco 49ers back in the day. And then he also did the game's winter edition on the C64. So that he really didn't have a extensive lineup of stuff he did, but he did those games. And the graphics were done by Kelly Day, who did graphics for Bruce Lee, Goonies, Mancopter. I love the name of that one. Pooyan, Zorro, and Fun with Spelling, which, by the way, not fun. That's a lie. So this is a game for 1 or 2 players. It's hot seat, which I had to check, but it is because I tried 2 players. I was hoping it was simultaneous, but it was not. This is also available, Brent, on the Apple II and the Atari 8-bit. Now, I've heard the Atari 8-bit is the version to go with, but I wanted to try it on the C64, and this apparently came over from the Atari, so it was sort of converted over from the Atari. So, this thing comes with a backstory, all right, which I have cunningly printed here. So, this is what you've got on the inside cover of this. Prospectors and miners have made fortunes overnight, deep within the enchanting mother-lode country of California. Their wild tales of buried treasures still excite a world dazzled by easy money. That's true. I'm dazzled by easy money myself. One such miner is a mad Irishman named Timothy O'Reilly. He's in search of coal, oil, gold, rubies, and diamonds. All those things. You'll guide him to the mysterious depths of the earth as he attempts to dig up hidden riches. But watch out. Deadly dangers and unknown creatures lurk there also. He's disturbed their peace during the mine shaft, and now they want revenge. So basically, that sums up the game entirely. You're a mad Irishman. You're out to get rubies, diamonds, coal, oil, and gold. So he's anything under the earth, this guy's going to dig out. And that's the premise of this game. So what do you do in O'Reilly's mine? If you're not watching along, picture a dig dug underground with the multiple colored layers. Yep. Picture it much smaller, and picture it scrolling from left to right.
No, not much smaller, much larger.
Well, no, I mean your character's smaller than dig dug.
Okay.
The screen actually scrolls from left to right. So you're talking about basically putting maybe 3 dig dug screens together, maybe even 4. And your job as O'Reilly is to go down in this mine and gather this stuff. All you have to do to gather it is touch it. And you'll see in the dirt, this is a side view, you'll see diamonds and rubies and oil, and you can tell what they are. And your job is to go and get them. Simple. Here's the bad part. When you blow, the very first thing that happens in this mine is a dynamite charge blows at the bottom. And when that happens, it unfortunately taps into the local river, Brent. Every time, by the way. You'd think this guy would learn, but nope. And so you've got a sort of an artificial time limit as this water creeps up this shaft. And you've got to go through and get all these items and get back to your home base, your little miner's shack at the top of the hill, before you are killed by water. You also have to run away from river creatures, Brent. That's pretty much what they're described as, river monsters. You'll see these 2 guys, and eventually, if you get high enough at level, you'll see 3 guys that come after you. They sort of look like miniaturized versions of the bad guys in Miner 2049er. They're little blobby dudes with like feet, basically, like almost.
Okay,
like
I'll give you that.
You know, now what's the twist here? Because that doesn't sound that interesting on the top. Well, the water rising in the mine is the twist in this. You've got 3 layers of earth you're digging into. There's a dark brown layer, there's sort of a tan layer, and then there's sort of a yellow layer. For every time you go up a layer, that means the water can also rise that high, okay? So what you've got to do is you've got to be very economical in the way that you're getting these items. You can't just go right to the top and get the gold or whatever, and then go to the bottom, because the water will now have the ability to go all the way to that top layer. So you've got to start at the bottom and work your way up. And I mean, I learned after a few games, Brent, go all the way to the bottom of the shaft, just go right past the dynamite and dig sideways from there, to try to give myself enough leeway to go through and get these items. Now, as the water goes up, if you not only can it just overrun you, but if your tunnel intersects with an area of the tunnel that's been flooded, you're dead. Yes. I mean, if you touch it, you're dead. If your tunnel touches it, you're dead. So you've got to be careful how you dig your tunnel as well, because the water is going to follow you. So if you mill around in one place for too long, or just make a big X or whatever, you're screwed. You've got to be careful how you build this mine shaft, because if you cross other parts of the mine, the water can get to you quicker, because it's got a quicker route to get to you. It's actually quite sort of an ingenious way to do stuff. It's funny. It's not instantly obvious when you play it, but after you played it for a while, you sort of understand the game's rules. They're not apparent at first. When you started out in this, Brent, did you have any idea what was going on when you first started playing this one?
No, I went into this completely blind. I didn't watch any videos beforehand. I just loaded it up. And my instinct was to go up and down. So I would drill into this one side of the earth and then go up and down, collect everything on one side, and then try to go to the other side. And every time the water would fill up past where I couldn't get to the other side of the mine. So I stopped. I had to rethink my strategy. And I noticed that the water level, it goes up no matter what you do, right? And it goes, there's 3 layers of the earth, like you said, the brown, the orange, and the yellow. As soon as you go past that brown to orange part, the water will go there too. So you have to go left and right to the screens. Otherwise, you'll cut your way off to getting to the other side of the screen with the water flooding. Yeah. And the water does not... at first, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe they added fluid dynamics into this where the water raises... No, it doesn't raise the way it should. It gets to a point where it will raise from the source, which is the middle cavern, up past no matter how much cave drilling you've done, and go up the center shaft. So it's a time limit. The water is essentially a time limit.
Yeah. Now, but I'm sorry, go
ahead. The little critters that follow you around, did you ever have any issues with them?
Oh yeah, but I got pretty far. I think I did pretty well on this. I got to like a level 6.
I think that's about where I got.
And they
on my best attempt.
One thing you've got, and we don't want to fail to mention this, is that you do have one weapon, which is dynamite. And so what you can do if these river creatures are on your tail, is you can actually leave some dynamite and it'll blow them up.
Or blow rubble and put in their way.
Right. Exactly. But I didn't use the dynamite a ton. The interesting thing is the dynamite is part of is actually plays into the points. This is definitely a points game.
Yeah.
So you've got just to show you the range of points. If you get the oil, which is by the way just marked oil in a little black box.
Yeah, because that's how oil comes from the earth, Aaron.
I like
prepackaged.
I'd like to know how this guy's retrieving. What did he bring down, like a barrel with him? I think this stuff. But if you get oil, you can go from $1,500 to $5,000. Gold bars $2,000 to $7,500. Rubies $2,500 to $8,000. Diamonds $4,000 to $9,000. Then you've got coal. That's worth $1,000. That's about right too. Where coal is the least worth thing. And then I like this. Occasionally you'll come across like a question marks. That's uranium. It can go from $1,000 all the way up to $7,500. So your guy's picking up uranium. I want to make that abundantly clear. And then you get actually, but the point I wanted to mention is you get a lot of money for destroying those monsters. You can get $10,000 a pop, which is a lot of money. And
but they're tough.
Yeah,
they're tough
and after $100,000, you get an extra man. Now, the dynamite element, for every unused dynamite, you also get money. So you get money back from that. I didn't use dynamite all that much. But I would say part of the reason is because for the longest time, I didn't exactly understand what it was for. You know, like you said, at first the river monsters aren't that annoying, but after you get hot and heavy, they do come at you a lot. They're a lot more annoying. They really will come at you. it's an interesting element to the game because it provides someone to keep you moving even though the water is not to your level yet. So sort of was a needed element, and it works. I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, a few aspects you didn't mention, the things you can pick up. Every once in a while, the game will throw in a skull and crossbones.
Yes.
And if you pick it up, that will kill you. There's also score multipliers that you can pick up, ×2, ×3. I think it goes up to ×4 at the later levels, but don't quote me on that. And another thing that keeps this fun is the score element is money.
Yeah.
And that just ticks something in the brain.
Yes.
It's more fun to get to earn money as your score as just generic points. At least it's always been that way for me.
I agree with you on the money. There's something to seeing that dollar sign in front of your score. It's true. I don't know. I was the same exact way. I don't know what it is about that. You know, I gotta say, overall, I really enjoyed this game. All things considered, I thought it was different. We should also mention that as the moon rises, the monsters become they basically are tougher, quicker. This has sort of a day-night element to it, which is bizarre. But you up in the sky, you'll see the moon come up. So even there were a lot of moving parts that they put together in this. And overall, like I said, I found it a pretty enjoyable game. What did you think? I mean, is this one that tickled your fancy?
I did enjoy the game. The control, there is a slight control element issue. The game doesn't want you to dig 2 tunnels right next to each other. And it avoids you doing this by just not letting you. So if you try to cut too sharp in on yourself, it just won't let you dig through the earth, and you have to scoot over in the invisible grid that it has to be able to dig through.
Yeah. It almost reminded me of Nibbler in a way. There was some. It sort of affected how you could actually go. Like there were some things there were some elements you just could not make you couldn't go a certain spot, or you couldn't get there. You know.
Yeah. The game actually prevented you from going. It wanted you to stay on its grid lines, and it wouldn't let you deviate. But overall, I had a lot of fun with the game. I didn't play this for 10, 20, 30 hours. It's not that type of game. You play this game, you load it up, you can play it for 45 minutes and get a good feel of everything the game has to offer. And if you play it I think I played it for about an hour and a half. I got to the point where I felt like I was getting good, and I wanted someone to play against. This is a decent high score game. The only issue with it is every once in a while you can be moving along and you'll be heading towards an item, and it will just randomly change into skull and crossbones.
It's not random. I think it may have something to do with the night cycle on the thing.
Well, there might be a timing element, but it's not a timing element that I could figure out. So for me, it was random. And I died that way on my best game. I was running toward an object to pick it up, and it just time element / random turned into skull and crossbones and killed my last life. Fact, and I was very upset by that.
Buck Owens confirms that. It's a night cycle thing. That's what I thought it was.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, you've learned something.
So that was a little annoying, but overall, a lot of fun. I do like the elements of collecting the stuff, and your helpers, your guys on the surface, won't lower the ladder for you to get out of the mine until you've collected everything.
That is the worst, when you get up there and you've missed one oil or something, and you get up there to leave it, they won't open the door. They won't lower down the ladder. I like that. I personally thought this was a lot of fun. This is the kind of game I dig. I want to try it on the Atari, since they said that's I will say, we should mention, this has an awesome opening screen and a real great musical
opening tune
that plays when this game starts. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I was bebopping around. Of course, listen, it's a C64, brother. If this thing can pump out the tunes like few machines could. Overall, I was real pleased with the old game overall. Now, I did look up the scores on this thing. Lemon gave this a score of 7.6, pretty decent score. This is
that's
the
a lemon score for you.
C64 Lemon. I looked up a few others. CVG gave this a 90 out of 100. Honest Gamers, these are more modern reviews. they gave it a 3.5 out of 5. We did get a listener review on this one. Graham W. Webke chimes in. This is a tough game, and I loaded this up on the Mister, and both my eldest daughter and myself enjoyed this game a lot. It has elements which reminded me of Dig Dug and Pipe Mania in the way it plays. I didn't think about Pipe Mania. The secret of the game, I think, is learning how to best to control the flow of the water with your mining route, but the water flows harder and faster each level. The only real issue with this game is the scrolling screen, which doesn't quite let you plan the full route to take to collect everything. But perhaps that's planned to get you trapped. My daughter got to level 4, and she likes it. I think also because she beat me. 8 out of 10. which I love that. So,
one other element of this, Aaron, when you are scrolling the screen left or right, it does let you go to about 3/4 of the screen before it starts scrolling.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that was a little more centered, but this is definitely something. I wouldn't go out and buy a C64 for this, but this game is certainly something. It's easy enough to emulate that you should go out and give it a look.
I do like that the ends of the earth, as far as you can dig, are, according to the documentation, there are fissures in the earth. It's as far as you can go. And in the game, there are just these cracks that go down the sides of the screen. I dug it, man. I looked this up on the eBay. You can get the disc for this for the C64 for $15, and you can get the complete tape for $23 in the UK. This was a tape game, as most of them were over in the UK. I didn't see any boxed copies of this. I just saw the disc, so the box must be a little bit more difficult to find. So, Brent, what do you have to bring to the table this week?
Well, we agreed that we wouldn't do an arcade game, and as soon as I saw the spin on the wheel, I knew what I wanted to play, which was Anteater, but that's an arcade game. So I ended up going with Ardy the Aardvark, which is completely different from Anteater. Wink, wink.
Okay.
For those who don't know, Anteater never got a port to any console.
That's amazing to me.
Isn't it? It had a 2600 port done, but it was never actually released. And the game was designed by Chris Obert, and he was originally a computer game maker, made a lot of Apple II stuff, then did some arcade stuff, and after Anteater, which was probably his biggest arcade hit, moved back to computers. And he was like, you know what, this sucks. I want to be able to play this on my Apple II. So he just said, I'm going to rewrite the game. Instead of an Anteater, I'm going to have an Aardvark. And Ardy the Aardvark was born. And Ardy is exactly 100% the same as Anteater for the arcade, with just a few different graphical tweaks. But the gameplay elements are all the same. In the game, you are a Aardvark, and you are eating out of a giant anthill. And to do this, you just stick your tongue in the ground and wiggle it around. So it's sort of a maze game where you control the tongue, and you have to go 4, 5, 6 layers down into this predetermined maze to eat all the ant larvae. And the enemies in the games are the ants themselves. They will actually go and try to bite Ardy's tongue, and if you do that, you lose a life. The other elements of the game are worms, which worms don't care if you're eating ant larvae. They just crawl on by. But if you try to eat a worm from the front, he'll sting you, and you'll lose a life that way. This game, much like the game we just talked about, also has a day and night cycle. What are the odds? And the way it works in this game is once night falls, spiders will start coming into the ant maze. And spiders will climb to your tongue and then start climbing down your tongue, whichever path that you have chosen. And once it gets to the end of your tongue, it will sting you and you'll lose a life that way. Ardy has one other trick that if he eats one of the queen ants at the very bottom of the maze, there's usually 2 of them, it will clear out all the other enemies in the game. So you'll be able to do that instead of trying to have to get all the way back to the top to eat an ant that maybe will be approaching from the side. This was a brilliant game. One of my absolute arcade favorites that I didn't actually play in the arcade. It was something I discovered on MAME well after the fact.
Yeah, because you would have been real small when this was out. This was...
Absolutely. Yeah. So I played this game to absolute death when I first found it on MAME. And it's such a simple concept. You know how the enemies can attack. You know, the ants are going to come from the side and just bite you. And they don't speed demon across. They just are going about their business, and they see that you've invaded their anthill and will bite you. It's a maze, collect all the dot games with the most perfect twist that you're using your tongue to gather up all the larvae, or dots in this case, you know, where essentially are dots. And the scoring element makes it a perfect high score game. Just all around fun to play. It also has one of the most unique buttons or button functions of any arcade game or console game or computer game I've ever had, and that is the tongue retract button.
Yes.
As you're going through this maze, you get your tongue real far down there, and if you've got an ant, up towards the top, that thing's going to get you if you don't get back to the top quickly. So you can actually just hit the button, and you will automatically retract your tongue at lightning speed. It adds just enough strategy to the game to make it amazing. I'm sure you've played this one before in the arcade, Aaron. Let's talk about the arcade version real quick first. Did you enjoy Anteater when it was out in the arcade?
I love this in the arcade, actually, when it came out. It's not one I played like tons and tons, but I remember seeing it and thinking to myself, man, that's what a great idea. Again, the games of this era, which I believe this would have been in the arcade somewhere like 82, 81, something like that.
Yes, 82.
And they were just trying every wacky... I mean, who thought this up? I just love it. It's such a great idea for a maze game. I mean, the fact that you retract your tongue like you're pulling the cord back to a vacuum cleaner is always amused me. You're right, the tongue retract button, that is a oddity amongst the arcade games. Probably the only one ever. So I had played this quite a bit, the arcade version. Just a fun game. So when you picked this, I had a pretty good idea what I was getting into. I didn't realize the backstory, which makes it even better. I did wonder about your choice. I understand why you chose it now. Because the Apple II is not something we've touched upon that much. But I got to tell you, when this loaded up, after I eventually got it to load, I was real impressed. I mean, it looks good. I mean, it looks real good.
For the time, and this was the original thing that Chris had programmed it for. And he wanted to make the C64 version, but someone basically beat him to it.
Yeah. This game, there were tons of different versions of this game. I mean, like you said, there were no... I could have sworn that there was a 2600 version of this, but apparently one had
never
been
got
made.
released.
Yeah, but I don't know if I ever played it, but I mean, you would think... that it would. This game was. I thought it was a pretty popular game in the arcade. Maybe it was. I remember seeing it on Starcade too. So I mean, I assumed it was pretty popular.
It actually had decent results for arcade sales.
Yeah.
But I always thought this was a big hit, and it was not.
Yeah.
It was considered a mediocre hit.
Well, I know it was big clone. There's a game I had played. I think on the Atari called Oil's Well. Like All's Well That Ends Well.
Yes. For Sierra.
Yeah. Was it Sierra? I can't remember who made it. But anyway, I remember playing, and there's more than this. I think even the Coco has like an Aardvark knockoff. But you're right. When I think back, I remember playing those games at home, but not actually playing this game. This is, I was real impressed. I mean, this plays just like the arcade. And it's clean too.
Yes.
It's clean. The maze is sharp. Everything acts like it should. And it works well. Your tongue, I think, doesn't come back as quickly as it does in the arcade, which but that just could be my. I haven't played the arcade version of this for quite a while, but your tongue retraction was not as fast as I'd like it to be. That's for sure. But everything, you're like I said, the ants, the queen ants and stuff that sort of freeze everything. It's all there. But I was impressed with everything about this game, to be honest with you. The controls okay. I mean, given my control, I didn't have an Apple II here.
Well, I thought the sound was very poor.
I will say the arcade has that cool little tune that plays when you start the game up.
King of the Mountain Hall King.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
But I mean, this could have been an arcade game like this. The way this looks, you could have put this in an arcade in '82, and it would have been fine. I mean, it's I was surprised.
Yeah, and Chris, who's unfortunately has passed back in 2012, he actually stuck with gaming for quite some time. He, after coming back home, he did worked on games like the Boulder Dash port for ColecoVision. He did Winter Games. He worked on that. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. But here's a crazy one, Aaron. He worked on Time Killers.
No kidding.
Of all games.
Oh.
Yeah. So he was someone
He's got cred now.
He started early in the making games and pretty much made games his entire life until, like I said, his unfortunate passing from a long illness in 2012. He's one of these unsung heroes, and gaming's full of them. They're absolutely full of them who got into this on the ground floor or very low, when gaming was brand new, and came up with concepts that were new and exciting and fun and really drove gaming to where it is today. People like this don't get nearly as much credit as they probably should, and it's unfortunate. But Anteater, one of my absolute personal favorites, and Ardy the Aardvark, although it has incredibly creepy box art.
Yes, it does. That box art, it's stylized as hell. I mean, someone really went to work on that, but I mean, it is weird looking.
Yeah, it's absolutely weird looking. But, this is a great home port, and he really did himself in the game justice. And like I said, like you had mentioned, Sierra did Oil Wells, which is the exact same game.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes.
There's a bunch of those. I wonder why they didn't actually try to I mean, if they had the guy that did Anteater and you did the game, why would you not just get the license for it? That's why I mean, maybe they just didn't think it was worth spending the money on or whatever, but I mean, it's there. All you have to do is put the license on it and you'd have the exact same game,
The question is that Anteater name really going to make a difference?
Well,
I don't think it would.
Yeah, you might be right. I should mention, as we're looking at here, the opening credit screen where he spells his name out with his tongue, I found amusing as well.
Yes. It's tough to say, to figure out it says Ardy, but it definitely does. On the eBays, this sells for about $26. Whether you're looking for the taped version or the disc version, those are for the Atari systems and the C64. I could not find an Apple II version listed on eBay, even in its closed auctions.
You can be sure it'd be pricey. Almost certainly.
If you're going to play this game, I think the Apple II is a fine way to do it.
Yeah.
Of course, if you want to take a look at the arcade version, that would be where I would go. I wouldn't buy this game, I don't think, unless I was going to set up, to play with others, to set up high score tournaments or whatnot. That's really what this game needs. Your buddies to play with to compete for high scores. But this has always had a place in my heart as something I played to death on MAME once I found it. Did we have any user reviews on this, Aaron?
We sure did. Of course, our good buddy the Graham chimes in here. Graham writes, even growing up with an Apple II, I had never played this before. The instant I started playing this in the Mister, I thought this game looks a lot like the game Oil's Well in the C64. There you go. Which is a spin-off of the Anteater arcade game. The game is actually closer to the arcade game and is tough as nails. I only passed level 1 a single time, and that was more luck than skill. it's too frustrating to have long replay value, but this game mechanic, if fine for a quick game here and there. My eldest daughter thought this was frustrating, especially how some creatures could run through your tongue and others couldn't. 6 out of 10. I did better than that, I will say. I could get a couple levels in. Of course, I've played a lot of Anteater over the years, and I thought it was played a pretty fair game, all things considered. But you know, I can understand that. I will say this: there's a reason not to own this game, and it's that creepy art. I don't think I'd want to look up on the shelf every day and see that sitting there.
That is a little brutal, I will admit.
I will say I enjoyed looking through these great games that take place underground. I mean, we could have done 50 shows on these because there's a lot of great games that you play from that angle, and I really had a lot of fun delving into it. Something else I have a lot of fun delving into, Brent. It's the wheel. Let's fire this sucker up. Fire this sucker up. Now, here's what we've added this week, y'all. We've got chat choice is back. So if you're in the chat room, this is where you need to have your thinking toque on. We've also added in our classic system the Intellivision, Brent. The Intellivision is back for 1 week only.
And of course, we have to remind folks that Sinclair, Atari 1200 XL, and TRS-80 are locked into the wheel until at least Thanks for Giving Marathon.
Yeah.
So if it comes up, we are going to play them, and it stays there.
All right, you ready? Here we go.
Let's do it.
Here we go. That's my wheel grunt. And the winner is...
You know, you're going to hurt yourself on that wheel someday.
Oh, good God. It's the Watara Supervision. Brent, what in God's name is this thing? The Watara Supervision? Where did you come up with this one? There it is. The Watara Supervision.
I didn't do it.
Give us some background on the Watara, Brent, if you may.
Well, it apparently is spelled with a W. Super's pretty keen. I wish I had some supervision.
Ooh, I've got supervision.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what this is.
This is going to be one of those weeks, ladies and gentlemen. Brent told me the fun and games were over, and he was a kid. I don't even remember putting this on the wheel. The Watara Supervision. I've never heard of this. We've had pretty good time with these things we've never heard of. So we'll have, and let's hope we can get some stuff for it. The Watara Supervision will be next week's wheel choice. Brent, we want to thank everyone that's joined us today. You want to give us some shout outs?
Yeah, let's run down to who we got in chat here. First of all, I want to say a special lurker thank you to Aggressive Sock. Because you can never have enough aggression in your socks.
Yes, I agree.
We got some other lurkers we got is Crazy Cynical. Boy, you were in the right place. Duke Hudson. We got Curtis. He didn't say anything, but I see him sitting there in chat. Rubber Slayer, because that rubber man, evil stuff. And Vertigo Pros. Just for a little bit of our lurker call out.
You know, Luke, now you've got Boat doing that now. He did that on Amigos. He's calling out the lurkers. You guys are pulling these lurkers out in the light. They don't like it.
And then for actual chatters, we got Picard, we got Buck Owens, we got Geos Lake, Mitz, Froto NL, Hermsky has made an appearance, the Slow Norris.
Oh, it's Slow in. Great.
My lovely wife, who also gifted a sub to Hermsky on her visit to the chat. Paul Kitching had some things to say today. Pixels at Dawn was here. So pretty good crowd.
Yeah.
Super Dan. I like Super Dan. I like it. And Johnny Renegade, which started out our huge discussion and made the show a little bit late.
Yeah.
But we don't blame you. We love you.
We may have to put up the live feed this week so we can go over all these one-ups. We haven't done that for a while.
No, we don't. We don't have to do that.
Hey, we'd like to thank everybody for showing up. If you want to catch any of the episodes of ARG Presents, any or all are available on Anchor.fm. And if you feel so inclined, you can also support the show through Anchor FM, and any of your support we do appreciate. Brent, again, to close this thing up, we've got the Watama Supervision next week.
Sure we do.
I
hope we do.
Any final thoughts before we take this thing to the house?
I wish that wasn't on the wheel, but the wheel has spoken.
That's right. If there never a more ringing endorsement to watch next week's ARG Presents than that. So, everyone take care of yourselves out there, and until next week, Wahama.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed making it. We want to say hello to all of our Twitch followers, our YouTube subscribers, and our podcast listeners. We'd like to also say a special thank you to all of our Anchor.fm supporters: Hermsky, Anthony Jarvis, Chris Foles, John Schaller, Frodo NL, Gary Heather, Graham W. Vetke, and Terry Howard. You guys rock. Would you like to help ARG keep on spinning? You can become an Anchor.fm supporter at anchor.fm/ARG-presents. Don't want to have to explain another credit card bill? That's okay too. Just leave us a positive review on the Apple Podcast or Spotify network. A well-deserved kudos goes out to Duncan Styles for all of our vector graphics and BarkBit for our closing theme. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next week, 9 a.m. Sunday EDT.